to thank everybody for being here. And, five individuals here running for the city council, 4 spots. So we'll start out with questions. We'll be rotating, and then we'll have a Q&A after we complete the questions that we have here. So the first question, and again, we'll start with Commissioner Decker. The obvious ones, okay. Facts about you. What makes you qualified to be a city commissioner? And then lastly, why are you seeking the position? Oh, and
gentlemen, pay attention to me.
watch the mayor because
We have 2 minutes, so Rick's got me doing the stopwatch, so about a minute in, I'll just do this with you. All right?
So if we just look other places, we don't have to.
Yeah, no. I urge you to look other places.
Done. You're done. So, okay.
Hey there. As Rick said, my name is Dan Decker. Thanks for everybody being here. It's early to come out this morning. Special thank you to Rick and the Paradise in the chamber for putting this on. I've been elected to the city council. My first election was in 2007. And in that time, I guess to answer the next question, what qualifies me for this, if nothing else, experience. I think anybody who is a resident of East Peoria in good standing, you're qualified to sit up here. Everybody with an interest has the qualification to get involved. When I first ran, it was a matter of, I had no agenda, had no reason I wanted to run other than having always wanted to do it. I've always loved the city of East Peoria. My dad grew up, I grew up with my dad being a firefighter in town, and just being a part of this community. I've just always loved this community. So with him being on the fire department, me getting to know mayors and city commissioners at an early age, it was something I was interested in. Over the past few years of being on the council, we've had a lot of great things, a lot of development that it's certainly not because of anything I did. It's those people that came before us, sitting with Ms. Rainey and her husband and many others before us that really paved the way. Dennis Triggs is back here, and he's probably the reason for a lot of the success in East Peoria. But my goals are to continue that. We have a lot of great things going on in East Peoria. We are financially stable, and not only that, the future looks brighter. So I want to continue to be a part of that, continue to help with the growth in East Peoria, and just looking for another 4 years. Thanks.
Right on time, I know. Oh, he practiced. Yeah, that's right.
All right, good morning, everybody. Well, my name is Chase Gillespie. Most of you don't know who I am. I grew up in the Peoria area. I moved to East Peoria in about 2019. I'm a 29-year-old male. I currently work for Pekin Park District as a sergeant for the police department. I've been in law enforcement for about 8 years now, and I'm the 6th generation of law enforcement within this Tazewell County.
Can't hear you. They need your sound on.
Can you hear me now? Is this better? There we go. Can you hear me now? All right. Well, like I said, I come from a family of law enforcement, public service, 6 years, 6th generation, sorry. I've been in law enforcement for about 8 years now, and I currently serve on the high school board, and I'm currently on the building committee and negotiations committee. I am a part owner and president of a property management company that I just started, buying up properties, fixing them up, selling them. I'm seeking counsel to help improve the city to build a bigger and brighter future for me and my family.
Good morning. I'm Mark Hill. I've born and raised here in East Peoria. My wife of 35 plus years, her and I have raised our 4 children here. They all went to East Peoria and had positioned them for the success that they now have. My background, a little bit on my education and work experience. I have a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science and Business Administration. I have an MBA from the University of Illinois. My years of experience in work, I was an IT consultant for the first half of my career for about 17 years. I've been a project management professional for a little over 22 years. I've worked for business, and I've worked for, some of those responsibilities included budgeting, which we've included in our new budgeting process and tweaks that we've done here at the city in these last 4 years. But as part of, some of you I recognize, I've been a youth coach for sports. I've been Cub Scout leader, pack leader all around the town, and was a founding member of the nonprofit Teresa Tracy's Strive to Survive. So I think the council, my years of business experience in private sector, I think it's important to have a private sector business experience on the council, and I believe that's me. And I'm a champion for East Peoria. Always have been. Bleed East Peoria. So I'm looking to take my skills and just contribute those to bettering what we already have.
Hi, my name is Seth Mingus. Want to take a quick second to thank Rick and thank the Chamber for putting this event on. It's always exciting to do it. This is the third time that I've done this. I ran for City Council a few terms ago and was not fortunate enough to win, and then ran again 4 years ago and was fortunate enough to win, and have been serving on the council the last 4 years. A little bit about me personally. I'm married to my wife, Patricia. We've got 3 kids. Julia's a sophomore, Jolie's in 8th grade, Lincoln's in 2nd grade. Professionally, I am the superintendent principal of South Pekin Grade School. So being in charge of people, some of you know the City of East Peoria, and this kind of goes into being qualified for the position. The City of East Peoria, each commissioner is in charge of a department. I have the fire department, but I think my professional experience being in charge of a school and being in charge of employees and kids gives me a little bit of a insight on how to operate help operate. I don't operate at all. Chief Zimmerman operates the fire department, but at least help with that. So that's my professional. I've been in education. Prior to being at South Pekin as superintendent principal, I was at Pekin High School as an administrator, and I started my career right here in East Peoria as a teacher at District 86, teaching U.S. history and 1 class of literature. So that's a little bit of personal, professional, political. I think experience is something that I can bring to the table. I've been elected to represent this community since I was 18 years old. Started on the library board when I was 18, went to the Fond du Lac Township, served on the county board before I was elected to the city council 4 years ago. So I think I can bring a wide range of experiences, not only with my professional career, but with the experience that I have being on elected boards and serving this community for over 20 years. I think the last question was, why am I seeking the position of East Peoria City Commissioner? I absolutely love being an East Peoria City Commissioner. It is something I look forward to. The last 4 years have been great. I think not only my department, the fire department has moved strides ahead of where we were. I think the entire city is in a better spot than we were 4 years ago. Is that it, Mayor? All right.
That's it.
Thank you.
Okay, hello. My name is Mike Sutherland. I'm the least best speaker up here. So I have a cheat sheet I'm going to go by. I'm 66 years old. I've lived in East Peoria my entire life. I now reside on Steiner Avenue with my girlfriend of over 17 years. I've lived in my house on Steiner Avenue for 43 years. And what surprises me about my neighborhood, and that is, I'm not even the junior on my block. I'm number 5. There's 4 other people that's been there longer than I have. It's a quiet neighborhood. It's a quaint East Peoria neighborhood. I've been in the construction industry since 1975. I built my first house when I was a junior in high school. When I graduated in 1975, I started remodeling houses and building porches, and I got into excavation in between 1980 and 1975, and I loved it, and I stayed in it. So I started doing sewer and water lines, predominantly residential, but I did do a lot of commercial. I did nearly all the McDonald's and from here to Quincy and back. So I hope you agree that my years of working in my trade, water and sewer, in the private side has been, well, an asset to you. As a business owner, I've think I brought a perspective of spending on our tax money and getting the best bang out of our dollars. At the same time, quit kicking the maintenance can down the road. I'm out of time.
Here's what I'm going to do to help you guys, because I think only one of you caught when I did that. So how about in 2 minutes, I'll just raise my finger like that. You can just glance once in a while. We don't have a clock, so I apologize.
All right, question 2, or actually this is question 1. We're going to Chase to start with. What infrastructure and residential improvements must be accomplished in the next 4 years?
Well, I'm sure this is a big topic for everybody, and it is for me where I live. The roads, there's no sidewalks where I live. Also, the biggest concerns that I've got when I was talking to citizens was every time it rains, our yards flood, the roads flood, my driveway floods. To me, I think that in the next 4 years, we need to get roads completed and sidewalks. I walk on the road every day on Springfield Road, about got hit every day by cars because there's nowhere to walk in the city of East Peoria, at least on my side of the city. I know the city's headed in the right direction right now with roads and putting funding towards it, but I think it's something we need to push harder and focus on more. On top of that, we also need to replace our street signs, mark the roads better. The road markings here in East Peoria are garbage. You can't see the roads half the time at night when it rains or it's too dark out. Another thing is we need to fix the drainage issues within the city. I'm tired of having my driveway flooded and all my neighbors' yards flooded. In the next 4 years, I would be dedicated to pushing to have new roads and fix drainage issues within the city of East Peoria. Thank you.
This is an interesting question because, one, again, being the commissioner over planning and development, it has helped me answer this. Many of you know we've got a couple of planning or development plans, and 2 of those are housing related. They're apartment related. We've got the Flaherty Collins project adjacent to the City Hall, and then we've got the river lofts down on the riverfront. So those are 2 obviously that we hope to, well, they should get started this year, and definitely we will hopefully wrap those up sometimes next year. So those are 2 key ones. You know, Mr. Gillespie here mentioned the roads. That has been, I've been an advocate of that, of increasing our spending on the roads, and you've seen that post-pandemic. We increased the amount we allocated last year, and this year we're close to, I think, $6 million. So there's a lot of projects or roads that I agree that we need to keep spending money on. And one of the goals I'm going to have is hopefully spend a minimum of $3 million on roads in the next coming years, and that's more that's been spent in the previous years. And so the amount of money that we're spending now is a great amount, and it's going to help, but we've got a lot of work to do there. You know, some of the other projects, you know, we've got Grange Road that needs to be done. And again, these are projects that are slated for this year's activities alone, so not even 4, but we must continue. Mr. Gillespie mentioned the ditches, and so some of the future work that I also agree with that I've heard from some residents as far as the ditches do not maintain, and we got to look at some of our storm sewer exit points or where they enter into our gullies and do some maintenance, because the maintenance has been lacking in the years past.
So I look at this as a 2-part question. Part 1 is infrastructure, and then part 2 is residential improvements. And I'll tack it that way. I'll look at the infrastructure. I think everybody in here knows, and streets have been a focus in this community for decades as far as improving our streets and putting money in the streets. And I think the current council has done that. We've dedicated over $6 million to street improvements next year. And I think that the residents of East Peoria will see those street improvements, or their neighborhood street improvements, along with kind of our more busy roads as far as streets go. The other part of infrastructure that Mr. Gillespie mentioned, Commissioner Hill mentioned, is basically our sewer. And I don't want to steal from Commissioner Sutherland because this is his passion, but our infrastructure under the ground is old. There's no getting around that. And we need to make an effort to continue to lay pipe and put pipe in the ground and update our infrastructure, because that is, everything flows into there. And I think working with the streets and working with the pipe and doing those projects combined makes sense for the citizens, as far as that way we're putting pipe in the ground and we're not tearing roads up to fix it. But those are definitely things that we have focused on and need to continue to focus on. As far as residential improvements go, you can look at residential improvement one of two ways. You can expand or improve horizontally or vertically. East Peoria is a little bit landlocked or locked with the river, so expanding horizontally is not something that we've done a lot of recently. But Commissioner Hill mentioned we are looking to expand vertically with the development down on the riverfront, and I'm really excited about that. I think that those are going to be really popular. I think that those are going to be a great addition to our community. And as far as horizontally, I think we still need to continue to look at developing the areas in East Peoria that are undeveloped. And I think a lot of the other questions maybe we're going to look at is business growth and quality of life in East Peoria. That's the way you attract horizontal growth, as long with vertical growth, is making East Peoria, to continue to make East Peoria to be a great place to live.
I think Seth's 2 minutes was longer than my 2 minutes. That ain't right. Okay. Infrastructure is what I've been dealing with in East Peoria on a daily basis in the last 4 years. After communicating with Cord and some of the employees, we've found some problems that need to be taken care of quicker than other problems, and instead of patching them, we're, by the most part, replacing them. And my infrastructure plan is basically a 3-year step. The first one is to find out what's wrong, and then get the bids on it, and by the end of the first year, get the engineering going. At the second year, get the construction done, and at the end of the third year, let the street department come in and put everything back into place that I tore up. There's no sense that in the street department coming in and making a nice pretty street and sidewalks and curb and gutter and getting the water out of people's yards if there's bad pipe in the ground. And let me tell you something, our pipe is old. We have pipe in the ground 100 years old, and easily. I feel that the street department has taken the brunt of the financial hit. The city in the past has borrowed millions to accomplish Eastport, Levy District, and Bass Pro site. And due to no windfall, but the Mayor Call's plan and the commissioners following in step, setting down our money priorities, we've come a long way with streets, and within the next 5 years, I would love to double and triple what we're doing in streets. And by the time our notes are paid off in 5 years, Katie, bar the door. There's going to be more work done in the next 10 years than has been done in 50.
Wait for the mic. I'll say something similar to what they said, a little bit different. First of all, I see these two items, infrastructure and residential, as going together. If you don't believe me or don't understand what I'm saying, Caitlin Court is a good example. I think our biggest problem in East Peoria, like I said, we have good things going on, but if there is a problem, it is drainage. Not necessarily water in your backyard, but more so the outlets, where at the end of a pipe that is down in the woods, if it's not maintained correctly, that will ultimately wash out that area. And we've seen that in East Peoria. East Peoria is a place that we have a lot of hills, bluffs that it's not easy to control the water. When the water moves, it moves quickly. So we have many places that are very expensive to repair. One repair could cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, but we have to keep chipping away at those just to preserve our neighborhoods. As the others have said, we need to try to figure out how to get more residential growth in East Peoria. We are landlocked. There are still a few places for growth, but I think you all notice that there is not a lot of residential growth anyplace. But that residential growth, when it comes back and when it gets stronger, it needs to be in East Peoria. We are looking at going vertical as well, and those projects are awesome. I'm looking for any opportunity before other communities come in and snatch up the property that property that is available to try to get it in the hands of East Peoria so we can develop it and the people can be part of our community and vote in the city of East Peoria.
All right, then we'll start with Mark on this one. With the current employment shortages, what are your plans to hire employees with the best skill sets?
Hey, Commissioner, real quick, this is a 1-minute question. I was reminded I was not paying attention. This one's a 1-minute response.
Oh, you changed the rules when middle of the game. Okay.
I was not advised by her.
Just talk fast.
That's right. Okay.
All right,
Well,
so each of you have a minute.
this is interesting because, you know, you look out here, all the business involved people, it's sort of like preaching to the choir here. I've recently had openings in the departments of accounts and finance and IT and planning and community development under me, so I've seen this. And one of the things that we first go back and look at is our salary offering competitive? And I've worked with our director of finance to even review the ones that I've had. But one of the things, that one's somewhat of an easier one to address, that to do a competitive analysis to understand where you're at in the wage market. But I think we also, in the recent conversation we just had, need to look at flexibility in our workforce and taking a different approach. You know, if we're looking to hire a full-time person and can't get it, should we look for look to maybe 2 part-time people that share a position? But with the skill set, again, the people that are in the departments under me, they've heard me say we don't do a very good job of developing, and we need to work on development plans, and maybe we need to build our own. You know, and I mentioned that to Commissioner Sutherland before, that we need to maybe build our own if we can't find them.
So as Commissioner Hill said, this is a chamber event, and a lot of you guys are probably in charge of hiring people, so you know that getting qualified employees even to apply for jobs is tough, let alone getting them to accept jobs. So I look at this in the city, I can answer this, what have we done, and then what can we continue to do? So I'll look at my department, the fire department. We have a qualification that after 3 years you have to be a paramedic. What we've done to try to get paramedics in, because that's an expense to the city and it's time that they're not a paramedic, is we've offered bonuses for individuals who apply that are paramedics so that we can try to get those qualified employees in. On the police department side, we've advertised and we allow police officers to come in, and we give them credit for the time that they've had in their current police department to try to get qualified applicants at the police department. The other thing I think for all departments that we have to look at is recruiting. We're recruiting a different generation of employee. We're not recruiting the 43-year-old male or 43-year-old female anymore. We're recruiting 21, 22-year-olds, and technology and going after those employees is an important thing as well.
Wait, that time goes fast. I'm gonna. I got 2 minutes worth of talk here, but I'm gonna do it in 1 minute here. I'm preaching to the choir here. You guys know how hard it is to hire somebody, especially after COVID. It was bad enough before COVID. Now it's exponentially worse. Our city is not set up for internships. I feel that we have an opportunity to get interns from local colleges and trade schools. We turned away interns in the past because of the time needed to make a quick decision. We weren't set up. We were not prepared for insurance questions, union questions, pay questions, job responsibility questions, liability questions. So I think that if we put some effort in internships and bring especially local people back into the neighborhood and let them have their internships here in our community, that they'll stay because their roots are here, their power base is here.
All right, a couple things. First of all, we need to continue to make East Peoria a place that people want to be a part of. Our community, I feel, is the best around, and many aspects to that. We have a lot of amenities in East Peoria with the east side of the trail system and just our community being what it is. But a couple of ways to do that. We have to make employees want to be a part of East Peoria. I think we need to continue in the direction that we've gone, and unlike the national approach, we do not put up with crime in East Peoria. And I think we need to continue that. As the nation is becoming softer on crime, I like that our council has taken the stance that we're not going to go in that direction. We're going to make sure that people aren't given free rein throughout the city. As far as workforce in general, I think besides pay, that's obviously pay is important, but work-life balance I think is important that we need to look at in the city and make strides to for our employees to be successful with a good family life as well.
Let's face it, nobody wants to work anymore since COVID. I mean, it's common. I see that at my job every day. I can't hire people to come work for my police department. We pay great money. I've noticed people who are my age aren't looking at the money aspect. They're seeing more of how can this benefit me down the road? Vacation time, retirement, sick time. What advancements can I do within my job? I would start looking at maybe can we update the benefit packages, sign-on bonuses. That's a big thing. I know it works for the fire department. Why can't we offer sign-on bonuses for most people? Maybe hold a career day at ICC, open house, internships is a big thing. I did an internship when I was in college, and it was great. I learned more information about the police departments and fire departments. These are all great ideas. It's a wide topic to cover, and so many good ideas. I think it's something we need to look into and go from there.
Okay. Let's flow this morning. All right. This one will start out, Seth. And how do you plan to collaborate with the other taxing bodies in the area?
So City of East Peoria has I would say, great relationship with if not most, if not all of the local taxing bodies. We have resource officers in both school districts. We work with the Park District on a variety of items. We share a building with the library. So I think we've got a great working relationship with the local taxing bodies, and obviously we want to continue to do that. We want to listen to their needs, help them in areas that we can help them in, and then obviously if we need assistance in something, reach out to them. But I think it goes bigger than just the local taxing bodies. If you look at the City of East Peoria, we have relationships with the state of Illinois, $1.9 million toward a new fire station. Our relationships with the state of Illinois helped us get that through Senator Kaler and Representative Eunice. Last Tuesday, we just passed a resolution to improve our trail system, which included an 80-20 matching grant from the state. So that's a relationship that we build with the state government as well that is beneficial to the City of East Peoria. So I think that we need to continue both locally and then at the state level building those relationships and working together with those entities.
Well, Seth just said a lot of the things that I had to say. I think obvious collaboration was when we had the riots and East Peoria asked for help, everybody came. When Washington had a fire at their car dealership, everybody went that could go. I think that the relationship that we have, like Creve Corps, when their pumps went down and their electricity went off, we donated our generators for backup to keep their city running with water. There's no questions asked, no monetary value there. So I think that the system is there. There's nobody's been abusing it. If it isn't broken, there's nothing to fix.
I think we do work well with our taxing bodies in East Peoria. The school systems, for instance, Rick is here, and our engineer went as well to help District 309 with a flooding issue. We took our engineer down and they combined resources just to try to figure out how to stop the flooding issues at the high school. Things like that are important. We right now are working with the sanitary district in Richland Farms to help clean out that drainage area. And with us working with them, it causes a decrease in the overall amount of money that's spent when we can help use our resources when we have them available. But I think one of the most important things is outside of East Peoria, work with other communities like Peoria. We're sitting in a place that is extremely important to not only East Peoria, but also to Peoria. Recently, some laws changed that if gaming would go land-based, that it would have to go to Peoria. Problem is, Boyd and the city of East Peoria have a great relationship. We want to keep them here. The city of East Peoria has invested an enormous amount of money and in this infrastructure and everything surrounding Paradise. It's important to keep them here. Also, the city of Peoria already receives half the revenue, so I think we need to help them to stay in East Peoria to make it better.
I know everyone says that they work great with other taxing bodies. They all say that now, but lack of communication is a big thing, even if you work together, lack of communication. I personally would set up meetings with other taxing bodies, work on plans and goals to figure out what we can do to help better the citizens of East Peoria, and also look around Peoria, Peak, and Morton, see how they're doing it, and go from there.
Okay, the collaboration, and just to build on pretty much what you've already heard, we take the collaboration somewhat for granted. We have a good working relationship with the Park District, and they actually provide an officer for security for our Winter Wonderland. We're sort of co-inhabitants with the library, so there's the shared services in that agreement in our Civic Plaza. There's a good working relationship. So those are I'll say that I wouldn't call those as much collaborative, but I was fortunate in this first term to be a part of a collaborative, and we actually, the city, Fond du Lac Park District, District 309, District 386, we actually came together to talk about branding and rebranding, and we were talking about the city specifically and maybe colors, logo, and that was a good experience and a good example of how we can come together and share our thoughts. And it was about the community, because we were saying there's so many things that we do well, but we don't all connect together and get that message out. So that's one of the things that we need to continually look for, and look for other opportunities like that.
All right. We're going to start out with Mike on this one. And Mike, we're going to give you 2 minutes on this one.
Can I have 3?
We're going to pass the time. Okay. The big question here is, how can business growth and development in East Peoria be continued and expanded?
Okay, I got some notes on this one. Do not regulate businesses out of business. Do not regulate businesses from coming to our town. Do not vote on thousands of pages of national building regulations and codes, state building regulations and codes, international regulations and codes, without even reading each and every line. If we cannot take the time to read it, then we should not vote on it. What was the line that was said during a couple elections ago? Let's pass the bill and then read what's in it. That's very dangerous for businesses to come into and have the rug pulled off from underneath of them. If we have a problem with a rule or a regulation in East Peoria, I think we should dig into these books, find the best fix, and then adopt that part only. Only. Because the counties are out there building right now. I know 4 or 5 houses going up by my friends that are building them out in the county. There's hardly anything going on in East Peoria, and we're ready for houses here. We have the sewer and the water, and these people have to put their own infrastructure in. The 2 most important complexes that are being built this year are the apartment complexes and the development by Bass Pro. And I feel that the best thing that we can do is help by not having policies to hinder. So I think that these people are taking the bull by the horns and doing the right thing and working within the rules that we have without us changing them unless it's absolutely necessary.
I think it's important to continue the practice of being business friendly as East Peoria has been. That's important. We are attractive to businesses, and we do a good job with our the way that we conduct business to get a business to the point of being open. But I think we need to do that, but not lose our code enforcement ability. I agree with Mike in that we shouldn't go overboard. We should not pass things that are not necessary. However, if you look at our fire losses, in East Peoria as compared to some of the surrounding communities with maybe not as many codes being enforced as East Peoria has, ours is much, much lower for many reasons, but one of those being the codes that we enforced from the beginning. So East Peoria, it's important to continue with our development. It's important to be business friendly, but we have to do it in a safe manner, that when people come here, they can shop, they can live in a safe community.
As a city commissioner, we need to work with businesses. We need to meet with them, ask them, what can we do as a city to help improve and grow your business here? Offer tax incentives, or even start a small business loan to get businesses to start up. We did this in Delavan. People came to us, opening a business. Hey, can you help me set some money up, get me started? Cool, they pay it back. For the business to grow in East Peoria, we need to make sure our roads and infrastructure can help support the growth. That's all I have. Thank you.
I was not going to make this about code enforcement and the difference between my opinion and Commissioner Sutherland, so I will not. The business development, if you look around, we've got stores, we've got the two apartment developments. We've got to continue a little bit what we're doing there. As Commissioner Decker had said, we're business friendly, and that helps us. People actually come to us, and sometimes we don't have to work as hard to go find those opportunities. But we've as a council decided to put an investment in what used to be our diamond in the rough, and that was East Side. We've lost our edge, and as competition came in, and we're doing that, and we need to continue to look at leveraging the powers or the strengths of the city in East Side and some of the others and combine them to be a little bit of a destination. We've got a family-friendly entertainment development that we haven't announced formally yet, but again, combining that with the East Side and the improvements at East Side. So we got to continue on those efforts. The chamber is invaluable in all of our efforts. They do a tremendous job. One of the things we're doing too in this next year, we'll be updating our comprehensive plan, which again is a plan that looks at all the land, the surrounding land, and comes up with a strategy on how we think we need to continue forward and how we can use the land to our most effectiveness.
So I think when it comes to commercial business growth in the city, I look at it two ways, or two different approaches. One, if you think back to East Peoria 30 years ago, those of us that have been here long enough think back in what East Peoria was. It's nowhere near what it is today. So when I look at that, I look at what is the difference. And I would make an argument that two things help create the city of East Peoria that we have today. One is East Side Center. I think Commissioner Hill is right. That created East Peoria to be a destination, which allowed us to have business come in because there were people here to spend their money. And I'd say the Paradise is another one of those destinations. When we got the Paradise East Side Center, that created a draw for people to come to East Peoria, and when there's people, businesses will follow because they want people to spend their money. So I think number one is we need to remember that. We need to reinvest in East Side Center. We need to continue to make East Peoria a destination for people who want to come here, who want to spend their money, because businesses will like that and businesses will follow. I think the other thing that we need to do is we need to continue to be business friendly. The city of East Peoria has always worked with businesses to make this a good place for them to come, whether that is some incentives that we give to people or we allow to people, whether that's looking at what can we do for them to come here, because we know that once they get here, we get their sales tax money. If people are coming for East Side and they're spending in the hotels, we get the hotel motel tax. So it's an investment in our future. So I think we need to continue to be business friendly, but I think we need to remember what got us where we are in the first place, and that is drawing people to our city because they spend money, and when people spend money, businesses will come.
Okay, now, y'all need to think about what you want to ask, because this is, we've only had a couple more questions. So this one's going to make Jeff Becker just cringe, this question. So, okay. How would you compensate for the declining sales tax or property tax revenue? For example, say a hospital closes, a couple of hotels close. So how would you How do we get out of here?
2 minutes.
2 minutes on this one. So this is very, very important, right, Jeff? Sales.
When I first heard about this question, I was a little concerned, thinking, was there something I missed? Because East Peoria has done well. Even through COVID, we did well. And it's the attitude, the way that we do business. We are business friendly. We want people to come here, and we'll do what we have to within our means to help businesses thrive. It's important to continue. We just continue to do what works. We have to find those areas that are important. For instance, this place, and making sure that if it does go land-based, it stays in East Peoria. We need to make sure that we expand East Side in a responsible manner, because Seth's right. That brings, who knows how many people total a year to East Peoria that would not have come without it. So those are very important, because when people stay here, when they come to East Peoria for the day, spend the night, spend a couple nights, they spend a lot of money. Whether it be on the Paradise or they go to restaurants, they spend a lot of money in town. We have to continue that. Declining revenues are something that through COVID we didn't see, frankly, because I feel our approach. We supported what businesses wanted to do, but we didn't put mandates, our own personal or city mandates, and force businesses to close. We allowed them to make their own decisions based on what they thought was right. I think that's important, and I think that not only the businesses appreciated that, but I think the shoppers, those that came to East Peoria, appreciated the approach that we took.
First, I would figure out why sales taxes are declining in East Peoria. I would focus on transparency and to reassure the residents that we would avoid adding new taxes unless it's the last resort. The last thing we want to do is add more taxes because we're losing revenue. I would not like that as a resident. I would cut back on our spending and put a plan of attack together and work with the local Chamber of Commerce to help bring in new businesses and residents to East Peoria.
I think it goes without saying that being in the Commissioner of Accounts and Finance, when the pandemic hit, it's an unprecedented life event. So I look towards Jeff Becker, Director of Finance. When that hit, me, the mayor, and him sat down and we started doing some planning. And it was just for that. We knew we were going to take a hit. We made some assumptions, and they were actually wrong. Where we thought we were going to come out of it was maybe a year off, but we thought this thing was going to come and go, and we started building the build back plan. But the important thing is the city buckled down, actually met the challenge, and we did obviously take some hits on our sales revenue, sales tax from different industries. Some of our retailers that had to be open to provide the essentials. But one of the things that we can continue to do, and we're somewhat well positioned, is revenue diversification. So on the sales tax, look at sales taxes, look for a sales tax or a strategy that economically responds differently during some of the economic conditions. Because most of you may or may not know that our property tax today goes to primarily pensions and workman's comp. So we're funded by alternate revenues other than property taxes. So if we, as a city, take a hit, within the sales tax or a huge economic downturn, we will have things to address. So diversifying is one. Looking for improving our rainy day fund is again another part of a strategy to address when we have a downturn in one segment or one sales tax area or another. So again, that's another point. But I think the diversification of our sales tax strategy and looking for sales tax in other ways, but that's what I would approach it as.
So I think the obvious in this question is you work really hard to make sure that doesn't happen, right? I mean, you work really hard to make sure that our sales tax continues to be where it's at, that our property tax, City of East Peoria has not raised property tax rates. We've kept those rate equivalent for way before, since I've been on the council, but you work really hard so that you don't have to worry about those things. However, if you do have to worry about those, I think we have a game plan with when the pandemic hit. I'll give all of our department heads, all of our employees, and the current city council, we worked really hard to make sure that if there were declining revenues in the city, we would be able to operate the city in an efficient manner, an effective manner, and make sure that we'd be able to do so with the best of our abilities, and that's what we did. And there were some tough decisions that had to be made at that time, and we made those decisions and we stood by them, and I really think we're in a better place now because of how we handled that. So we've kind of been in that situation. The other thing I'll touch on quickly is East Peoria has always been open to alternative revenue sources. We're sitting right now in a building that was an alternative revenue source however many years ago when we brought Paradise. Those of us who are old enough to remember, Peoria didn't want the Paradise because they thought all kinds of things bad might happen if they brought a gambling boat over there, and East Peoria took it, and we are the better for it 100% for sure. We recently passed, we have one cannabis dispensary, and we passed another one. Whether that's a personal decision for every individual, but that is an alternative revenue source for the city of East Peoria, where if we have declining sales or property tax in one, maybe we can find alternative revenue sources in another area to offset the declining revenue if that were to happen. So I think we work like heck so it doesn't happen, but if it does, you have a plan, and we always need to be continuing to look for ways that we can generate additional revenues when they're available.
Okay. We as individuals in the city must live within our means. That means to me that we're doing everything that we can now. We trim the fat as much as we can now, but we're living within a set of rules that sometimes are hard to live within. I'm going to blame this on the state of Illinois. I think that we should pressure our legislatures into lowering taxes instead of raising taxes in the state. And when they make rules and regulations that we have to follow, have some financial help to help offset what it's going to cost us. They can make up these rules and regulations, and we're paying for everything. Pressure the legislators to back up the police and the courts and keep people in jail that belong in jail instead of letting them out on early terms. Because that creates a hell of a burden on every city. Every city has to deal with everything the state wants to discard. And it's absolutely a financial cost to us. Our state legislators have never met a rule or a regulation they never liked. I think that there's a time and a place to where you need to look back and say, hey, listen, we overstepped our bounds. We made a mistake here. And undo some of the rules and regulations that they've made, which would open things up. And our city has done that. I found some problems with our zoning rules and regulations, and we actually undid them instead of leaving them on the books. If the state of Illinois was to get a handle on that, I think it would be a better place to live everywhere.
Can't believe it. 8:20, question and answers. We're right on schedule. Mayor? We're right on schedule. Questions? Oh, come on. Wow. Steve?
I'd like to hear the position on the 1% countywide sales tax for like schools. What each one of the commissioners do.
Okay, why don't we, let's see. Well, let's go with Chase, because you got it.
Well, that's a good question, Steve. I don't know the answer off the top of my head right now. That's something I'm going to have to look into and get back with you with the answer if you don't mind meeting up with me afterwards. Thank you.
I'm not sure, when it came up before, I looked at it, I looked at the information, and to me, the East Peoria would be on the detrimental side of that whole equation. I'm all for shoring up we have three school officials here today, but what I guess it boils down to, when I looked at the details before, the city of East Peoria overall would take the burden of that sharing, where that 1% tax in the city of East Peoria would put most of our taxing bodies over 10%. And the impact to our economy, our East Peoria economy, when you become taxing everybody on everything they buy at 10%, there's a mental, from a shopper's perspective, that especially on bigger ticket items, they will go elsewhere. So from that aspect, it was not beneficial even though it would have been beneficial to the schools, but the city of East Peoria would have been feeling the brunt of that tax plan.
So I guess the easy questions are over now, right, Steve? We're getting it. So I think when it comes to the 1% sales tax, my day job and my job as city commissioner do conflict a little bit because I'm a school administrator. And I'm a school administrator in a small community where that 1 cent would help us. However, as a city commissioner, the 1 cent sales tax, East Peoria has put a lot of money into it. We've talked about this, its infrastructure and its business. And for us to give away the money that that's a return on investment. I think the question, Steve, and I don't know if you're talking 1 cent or the 1/4 cent that we currently have, which you're talking the 1%. So as city commissioner, I think that we don't want to give away the sales tax revenue that could go directly to our schools if we were to keep a 1/4 cent. I don't know what the numbers would look like, but right now our schools get a 1/4%. That ends in a little bit, and I think that that's going to be the time where we'll have to have some conversations with the schools. Like, we've had this, what have you used this money for? What does this make your budget look like? But as far as the 1% sales tax, I think if you're a citizen of East Peoria looking at a 1% sales tax where we're distributing that money out there to all the different school districts, even though we're the ones who foot the bill for all the infrastructure to handle all the business that comes in here, we would be better off to give that to our local schools. Now, like I said, at my day job, I'd love to have that 1%, but I also have a role here, and that is to protect the city's bottom line, and I think the city's bottom line will be better to look at the 1/4 cent.
Well, being as conservative as I am, I think you know what's about ready to fall out of my mouth. The 1/4 cent tax rate that was voted in by City Council, I think was a mistake. The school district has set up as school districts. They need to appeal to the public, and the public have voted it down several times. This is another backdoor way of getting around the populace voting something in or out. If there's a school district out in the country, out in the county that needs money, let them go to their local district voting members and talk them into voting this. There's no reason why we should be legislated, not on the ballot, a tax increase.
Speak about this in general, because we don't have a specific issue like what exactly we'd be voting on, but I understand it. We have spent a lot of money in East Peoria on infrastructure to help create what we have with the levy district and every other part of East Peoria. That debt, those other communities don't have. Having said that, there are smaller communities that don't have the luxury of having sales tax opportunities in their community to help offset their school systems. In a perfect world, I would rather, if there is going to be a need for our school system, that we have a sales tax that benefits our school system. Having said that, I think years ago it was 10 to 1. For every a dollar that was spent by an East Peoria resident in East Peoria, 10 was spent by people outside of East Peoria coming to our community. So it is important to think regionally of the importance. So I think you have to look at this as a personal thing as well as the objectivity, the responsibility of being a city commissioner. As a city commissioner, I have to look at what is best for us, the amount of money that we have in debt and how that will affect it. I do understand the need. The money is going to have to come from someplace. And the reason we look at sales tax is because it's less expensive to the individual person rather than putting the entire amount on the backs of the taxpayers, the property tax. So I understand it, but being in a community that has such a rich history of sales tax, it's difficult to collect that tax and then give it to other communities when we are the ones that fit the bill for the infrastructure involved with it.
Next question. Rod?
We are a 57-year-old small commercial concrete business in East Peoria and have been for all those years. I hear a lot about attracting new business. What would you do or can you do to help all of us that are small businesses that have been in East Peoria forever? I heard Mark talk about competitive edge. There's no shortage of concrete businesses. You know, what can you do to help the small family business in East Peoria that's been here? I'm going to vent a little bit, I guess. Sometimes I feel like we are overlooked, those of us that's been here for many years. What can you do to help us, I guess?
Mark?
My name got mentioned specifically, because, you know, this is a tough, you know, to me, a tough challenge. You know, when I make purchase decisions myself here as a citizen, I look to East Peoria first, you know, even restaurants, and tend to not go out. Rodney has a good point in his particular you know, position. When we, you know, and again, he's in a concrete business, and I know he's offered a lot of bids in for the city and may or may not get those. You know, I guess my natural, my first instinct from personally is I favor East Peoria first. But when it comes to spending of tax dollars, when we bid out a project, again, we go out and usually accept the most, you know, responsible bid. And it may not be the lowest bid, but usually it tends to be there. So that's where we get in a conflict with businesses such as Rodney in the concrete, where we're spending the taxpayers' dollars. You know, we could not. We've got to face the taxpayers and say, why are you spending, you know, taking the highest bid? So that makes that type of business. So, you know, I don't know, you know, in his business or any small business other than promoting them, when it comes to a bid perspective, to me it gets much more difficult, and I don't say our hands are tied where we can't help that business. We can't favor the business, even though whether I'd want to or not, we can't do that. So I know that didn't roundabout way, you know, I favor the East Peoria businesses, but when it comes to a bid perspective, it gets difficult to favor an East Peoria business when we're spending the East Peoria taxpayer dollars.
So I think this is another little bit more difficult question. I agree with Commissioner Hill. When it's a bid process, we want to look at the low bid, the lowest responsible bid. I do think we need to look and work with our businesses in East Peoria. C&G Concrete's been here a long time. I know you guys have done some work for us and probably lost some jobs as well, just based on the bidding process. But I think the biggest thing we need to do is have conversations with those businesses. If I see that Rod's or any of your local businesses are putting bids in and you're continually losing that bid, I do want to give the business to East Peoria. I'd much rather see our money go to our citizens and our businesses than somebody somewhere else. So have a conversation about why is that bid higher? What can we do? Well, obviously, we have to follow the rules for the bidding process, but what can we do to help basically know, and maybe we can help them know, what they can do to help get that bid. It is tough when it comes, bidding is a tough thing just because our hands get a little bit tied, but if I have two companies, one of them's in East Peoria, one of them's not, and they've got the same bid, I'm gonna go with the East Peoria company every time. I think with some of those smaller jobs too that maybe don't have to go out for bid, and we have a relationship with companies, I think that we need to go to these Peoria companies for some of those smaller jobs that as long as they're a responsible bidder, to go to those individuals or those businesses for the work.
This hits close to home. The first thing that I would tell Rodney, and that is that the sewer and water department don't have a lot of concrete work to do, but when we do have concrete work to do, he's my go-to guy. I know in the past when we had a couple new managers come on board that they outsourced it without contacting C&G. I disagreed with that. That'll never happen again. My hands are tied to a point to where everything costs so much now. For instance, I have a $10,000 maximum I can okay. I think it should be $25,000. Not because I want the power to do that, is because everybody's prices have doubled, and so is C&G's price. So now I'm waiting to give an okay on a $10,000 job, which 2.5 years ago would have been a $5,000 job. So I think that things like that, to make it smooth moving on my part to where I can react quick, would be a smart move. And I brought this up once during city council meeting, and now that I brought it up again, I'm gonna bring it up again.
It's tough to follow that. Rod, to answer your question, I don't know. I'd have to look at it and think about it. But I will say this: a number of years ago, I mentioned Dennis a couple times, but there was an issue in town, not concrete, but it was a business that was from East Peoria that did not have the lowest bid. And I was talking to him about it, and I said, I'd like to give it to them because they're an East Peoria business. And one thing, he agreed with that. He said, I understand it completely. He said, one thing you have to think about is there are a lot of East Peoria residents who may work for a business in Peoria. So he reminded me that it's important to think regionally as well. Because just because a business or somebody has a business in East Peoria, their workers may not necessarily live in East Peoria. So it's important to use the lowest responsible bidder. Having said that, I have, I guess, heartstrings for those businesses. Their business is close to my house. I drive by it a bunch of times every day, and I would like to go with them whenever I can. So to answer your question, I don't know. I don't know what is legal that we can do. Obviously, we have to be responsible, but your company is one that we wouldn't have to worry about, always quality work. So I think that it's just something you have to investigate to figure out what is legal for us to do and what we can do.
I'm all for small businesses. I would help every small business, even you. I don't have an answer on how we could go from here. It'd be something we'd have to get together, work on a plan to help improve small businesses. That's how we would have to do that.
No, it's one thing that we do stress all the time. Local, you know, these are the tax.
I guess I have a little bit of rebuttal. I'm 98% of our work comes from low bid. C&G Concrete would never ask for a handout. Never have, never will. All I'm asking, the question was, you know, not just C&G Concrete small business, but all of us small business, make sure that we are not forgotten. And I'll tell you again, we have been here 57 years, and we were forgotten about a job that was a mile from my office. I wasn't even asked to bid it. That hurts me a little bit. And I think it's just lack of communication. I'm going to say it again, there probably isn't an older concrete business in East Peoria than us. We're a family business. My dad started, we're second generation. Tricia is the president. You know, myself, my brother, my kids all went to school here in East Peoria. There again, I'm not asking for a handout. Guarantee it. Don't want it. I want to bid the work, just like I get work from every other municipality. But I think communication with each one of you. I would love to sit down and talk with each one of you, and the mayor. I'd love to.
Do you mind? Rodney, my door's open 24/7.
Yes, sir. Mine is too.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate
For the
it.
record, I think people need to better understand with municipalities, although it may not be popular, there is a responsible bidder process we must follow. Otherwise, we do face a lawsuit. I understand there's times when, you know, the city's allowed to select a bidder that may not be the lowest, it may be local, but there's other times when you have to follow the rules in the process. I don't think there's anybody on the city council that wouldn't give business to a local business. if they had a choice.
Exactly.
And, you know,
City has been good to us.
Yeah, so I think it's a tough question to answer, but there is a responsible bidder ordinance that's in place in East Peoria, and that threshold is $25,000.
That's no different than any other municipality that we do. It's a,
I
it's a,
understand.
it's a, you know, low bid.
It's a fair bidding process.
Yes,
so.
exactly.
Other questions? Dick?
Yeah, most people know I'm chairman of the planning commission on my 8th mayor, but that's beside the point. What are we doing, or what can we do as a council, and even as somebody on the planning commission without traveling, how do we sell our community to the big businesses that we'd like to attract to East Peoria? What can we do as a council and even as members of the planning commission if we want to sell our town to somebody?
Excuse me, I think we continue to hit on the positive things that a lot of us brought up today as far as why East Peoria is a great place to locate their business. I do think we've got different, you said planning commission, I know the mayor and maybe Commissioner Hill's involved in the branding committee that we have to attract people to our community. But I mean, the big business, we've done a good job. We've got Bass Pro, we've got Target. I know we've got other big businesses that we've brought into the levy district. I think we need to continue to look at that. We probably are running out of a little bit of land in the areas where those businesses might want to come. I do know that the city has city-owned property that we continue to work with developers on to bring different businesses. The mixed use would be an example of that. I know that's not a huge business necessarily, but those we work with the developers. So I think we need to continue to do what we've done. We need to continue to have our positive image of the city out there to the developers and the people who want to come here. And then when we get interest, we need to sit down with the interested parties and we need to work on whatever we can to bring them here.
Well, we need to get the state of Illinois to mow their own damn grass. You go up down any state highway coming up and into East Peoria, the weeds are high, the pollution's in there, the paper products, they don't do their part, and I know the mayor has been head-to-head with them several times, and coming down here today, he's gotten nowhere so far because the state of Illinois isn't going to do anything. I mean, that's the bottom line. I think that to bring, my girlfriend wants Dillard's here bad. And she keeps telling me, why can't you get a Dillard's come in East Peoria? I was going, Jesus, it's not my job. But there's so much criteria that it would have to meet because I think East Peoria would be a beautiful spot for a Dillard's. I do. I think that we need to clear out land that is partially cleared out, and Richland Farm areas is a prime example of a mixed residential and business, and it could move that direction. There's a direction to be gone to out Springfield Road. There's a direction out Coal Hollow Road. There's directions towards Spring Bay that East Peoria needs to take a really good hard look at. And I think that if we don't, then we're doomed. I mean, we'll be building on top of relics of buildings.
Don't let him fool you. I think he's the one that wants Dillard. We have to promote East Peoria. Everybody in this room knows how great East Peoria is. We've all chosen whether to be work in East Peoria, have your business in East Peoria, or live in East Peoria. We know what a great community this is. But I think it's important to promote those areas of our town that we want to get out to the public. Just a little bit of an example. A number of years ago, I met with the school administrator, Chuck Nagel, from East Peoria High School at the time. And he was talking about the educators in East Peoria. And he said, I believe the educators in East Peoria are better than those of some of our, I won't say the names, some of our surrounding communities that have always been touted for their school system. The reason he said that is because he looks at the clientele, the students that come, that many times the poverty rate in East Peoria is higher. So that teacher they have the added issue of bringing a student that maybe didn't get the nutrition, the comfortable sleep the night before, has their pens, papers, and everything else they need. So the teacher in East Peoria has to figure out a way to bring that student up along with those that do have the means to come to school prepared. Those things, I believe our school systems, I believe our city in general, our park district, everything, chamber, I think we have things that other communities only wish they had. So I think we have to answer, I'm not the type of person that knows how to promote, but I think we need to find someone that does.
I would give incentives to the business, maybe give them some property, work with them, don't scare them off, show them how beautiful East Peoria can be, and build their business here.
Well, it's interesting, this is in my area of responsibility, so I learned something, because early on I'd hear a voice say, hey, we went to Dillard's. It wasn't Dillard's. But I'd go back to the director of planning and say, how do we get, I've heard Schnucks, I've heard Hy-Vee, I've heard Dillard's, I've heard craft store. The interesting challenge to this model is that they use brokers, or they use I don't say finders that go out and look for properties, and they have these detailed demographics that they're looking for, certain traffic counts, certain income, certain populations. They all add challenges to that mix, but I've worked with planning and director of planning, planning and development, and said, how do we get tied in to these brokers, to these finders, and we are. And one of the things we can do, and maybe need to, it goes back to the branding in a way, is one, we have to have inventory of properties. And right now, one of the voids that often from a manufacturing side, they want buildings of 30 feet clearance inside. We don't have any. We don't have that. We don't have sometimes the properties ready to go. So one of the things we can do, always have an inventory. We stay in touch with those brokers or those finders. And sometimes we actively reach out, because I've said that, why don't we actively call Dillard's? Well, they're brokered through, they're ingrained in this process that we've got to go through a different path. So those are some of the challenges, but we do reach out, and we do keep those inventories in the event somebody comes looking for us.
Dick, also to that point, we've talked to several site selectors, as the Commissioner said, developers, and some of the things he said were very true. But one of the things you've got to sell yourself. That's the biggest thing to these folks. And right now, I know it is an initiative that the mayor and I, and Henry Vickery here, are on to promote this area. It's the Peoria area, as we call it. And it's spearheaded by some very influential people. And this thing is just getting on, it's maybe above the ground level now, John Henry. It's above the ground level, so it's starting to go forward. And I think over the next year, you'll see some great improvements. I've talked to our board about this, and there's a lot of things that need to be done. Workforce is still probably the single biggest issue. If you don't have the workers to fill the jobs, then you're not going to get people here. Because that's part of manufacturing, part of retail, whatever. So, as we continue down this path, and this is going to be a quick action versus a long term, because we've got to do it now. Because every area in the country is looking for the same people, whether it be the college recruit or the high school student that's getting out of school. So, that initiative is going strong. Mary, anything you want to cover with that?
I want to go to closing remarks.
Okay, well, people have to get work.
Push it along.
How about we go to 1 minute, guys, because we've said a lot, so we could just do 1 minute.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out and giving me the opportunity to speak this morning. I just want to say that I am focused and dedicated on improving our city, and I'm here to serve every last citizen of East Peoria. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to building a bigger and brighter future for years to come.
Now that we're cut in half, one of the things, within months of taking office, we changed how we support and do our IT structure within the city. We saved money and improved our support tenfold based on what we had. You know, we've recalled bonds and reissued bonds and saved hundreds of thousands of dollars towards the debt that we inherited when we were elected last time. The developments that we've got going on, both that we have already talked about, and you know, we've got Freddy's that's breaking ground, should be breaking ground as well. All those developments and the efficiencies that we've done in our facilities is under me too. So one of the things that I'm not in it for the fame or the glory, I'm working for that state position. I view myself as a servant leader, and I think my skills and experience can be used to improve the city from this day forward. So all I do is ask for your vote on April 4th.
Just want to thank you guys once again for coming out and thank the Chamber for hosting this event. Like Mark, I'm asking for your vote and or your support on April 4th and in the upcoming election. I think the city of East Peoria is in a good spot. I think that the last 4 years have been good for us, and I'd like to think that I've had at least a little something to do with that. So I hope that everyone in this room will take notice, or at least hopefully acknowledge that or say that as well. I think that, now I lost my train of thought. That's the second time. Last year, or 4 years ago, a phone went off when I was talking too. I think I just have bad luck with that. I think not only my experience the last 4 years in the council, but my experience the last 20 years representing this community in some form of elected capacity, gives me what it takes to continue to do this job, and I hope that you guys will allow me to do that for the next 4 years.
I have 3 pages of accomplishments to say in 1 minute, so I'm gonna speed read. We constructed a new water and sewer building with the money grant that we got from the Washington tornado. We just about lost that grant because time was running out on it. It had been sitting on the table for a decade. And Cord Chrysler found it, picked it up, ran with it. We have a new building. We ran roughshod over the multi-million wastewater treatment plant reconstruction. We have put in over 6,870 feet of pipe in the ground in the past few months, and that is more pipe than the city has put in the past 9 years. And we have probably double that again coming in the next few months. 4 of the larger lift stations have been replaced. We have new SCADA system. Our future projects are in the hopper are Arnold Road, Newman Drive, Bloomington Road, Springfield Road, thank you.
He's got a lot going on.
I'll pick up where he left off. We've done a lot. And going in 4 years ago, didn't really know it was a new council. And what I'll say is, first of all, it's tough shoes to fill, as Dave Mingus, but John Call's done a great job. And our councils worked well together. We've accomplished a lot in 4 years through an incredibly difficult time. COVID was not easy. It wasn't easy to navigate, but this community stuck together and it's worked well. It's easy to be a commissioner in a thriving community, but it's even easier when you have a supporting family behind you. And that's with me. My wife's always been supportive, as well as my kids. I made a joke years ago about how when I would get on the phone, she'd shuffle the kids out of the room so they wouldn't hear what's going on in the background. Well, now, like, we recently joined Farrell's, and we drive separate because she knows that I'm going to stop and talk to somebody. So it's just easier that way. It's nice to have somebody who's supportive, that not only allows me to do this, but supports me in doing it. Thanks to the Chamber, and thanks for Paradise for having us here today.
All right. Again, thanks to Paradise. As always, food and everything's set up was fantastic. So easy to work with. Candidates, thank you for being here. As was mentioned, April 4th, the election. John, everything ready?
Yes, sir.
April 4th, okay. Early voting starts, what?
Already started.
Already started. So, yeah.
We'll be at East Side Center 3 weeks and 2 weeks. The third weekend and the second weekend before Election Day for in-place early voting here in Fond du Lac.
So that's one thing that's changed over the landscape. Not everyone goes to the poll the day of the election, so that's early voting. Also, the annual dinner's coming up April, so check the website. It's going to be a fun night. As always, casual. John Morris from the Riverfront Museum. If you ever heard John speak. Great. It's going to be a did you know? Well, you get John rolling on history. That could be, we could be there for a day and a half. So, and Tim Kendall's going to be our MC again, so we'll get Tim on that also. It's going to be a fun night. So check that out. E-News, web, coming up with a new website here real quick. So that'll be out there. Tremendous. Katrina, how many hits did we have in February?
Almost 300,000.
So people are reading. So if you haven't, join the crowd. Okay? So with that, vote, and thank you for being here.